Alright, here we have Jinhsi. Now, as you can see, instead of the actual Jinhsi model, we have her skin today. The skin that came out in 2.0 and actually costs more if you don't get it until Wednesday, is one of their first attempts at making a themed skin. You could almost call it a skin line together with Sanhua, but I don't want to go that far yet. In the trailer, she was advertised as being cherry blossom themed, but as you can see right now and later, some of the theming on her is actually based on a lotus. Starting from the front, we have the usual Jinhsi-esque style. Along with the long garments, we do have a little bit of a different hairstyle, but the usual swept back pigtails are still there. The entire essence of Jinhsi has been mostly kept, but the turquoise was changed to pink. Aside from that, everything you see on her kind of resembles petals or has the lotus symbolism, if you want to call it that, all over. Moving on to the side, you have a mostly similar silhouette, just again with the ends of the hair being flowers. The length of her dress seems a little bit longer. I will put a comparison up on screen. Besides that, you can kind of see that they changed her nails, that the inside of her sleeve has an interesting pattern, as well as the heels she wears, which I can already tell you, in the game they look slightly different, but we will look at that when we get to them. Looking at her from the back, you can see that they actually kind of reverse this, with the neck and shoulders being visible here, but the lower back being covered a bit more. I actually find this a little bit interesting, as usually resonators don't really have anything above their tacet mark, so I'm a bit surprised this hasn't been burned through yet, but maybe they're trying to break out of that with her having stuff over it, and we haven't actually even found Zani's tacet mark yet, so I guess we'll only know once we get to know her better. The rest of her is pretty much the same lengthwise, though again you can see the clear petal symbolism with lots of flower embroidery, this back part, a lot of lace, and something that's been memed on by the community, which we will look at later. Surprisingly enough, the last side isn't actually any different. You would think for a paid skin they'd actually do something different for the last side rather than just copy pasting it, but that seems to be their choice, I guess. I will actually put a lot of comparisons in this video just to see if maybe for you, for the last day, you can buy it now, I think. Just to maybe make you regret it a little bit more if you didn't get her on a discount. Starting from the front, you can actually see what I meant earlier in comparison. A lot of the stripes that were turquoise before were just changed to pink, with little pink highlights you can only really see if you zoom in being added. This front part was seemingly separated, and they added another pink stripe. Besides that, a lot of the hair accessories were actually switched out in favor for more branch and flower looking ones. Instead of the flower-like pieces holding the swept back ponytail up, you actually have her hair being even longer, with having half of it being put into a braid and then going back. I don't really understand how this hairstyle works, but I guess she does. Good luck doing that every morning. They did keep this little bow-like thing though they made it more of a blue to pink gradient, with making this big braid thing look a little bit like a flower, which I suppose fits into the theme. The rest of the upper hair is pretty much the same, just with a little bit more pink stripes. Now again, instead of the flower-like shape made of gold up here, she has some actual flowers being connected through the middle via a golden branch. I actually really like the design of this. I do like that they kind of broke it up here in the middle. I wish they made a little bit more of these branches. They actually kept the core aspect of her face, with both of the moles she has still intact. The lashes are still the same, I think, just having more pink in them, and the biggest change, I suppose, is her iris. Instead of being a pure gray, it's actually more pink with sparkles this time, and instead of an actual iris, she has a flower. I also really like the subtle blue tints in them, like the lining here and the background of the flower. In addition, the big jade clunkers she was wearing are now exchanged for more subtle golden lotuses. Moving on to the back of the hair, the pink stripes do continue all the way down to the ends of her hair, becoming more and more pink until they actually form into flowers. I don't have the skin itself, so I don't know if there's any specific story or voice lines on these, or if she just fully ignores that her hair is a flower now, but these actually are really pretty. And I actually think hairstyles like these are a great idea for more flower themed resonators. Now again, the end of this has more little stems, is still missing the big stem part in the middle you'd have for a lotus, but it is very big. Moving further down, and as I've said before, the shoulder guards she was wearing were kind of switched around. The neck is now fully clear, aside from this little beaded gold necklace. Besides that, something I haven't seen before, and something they definitely need to tone down on, is that she actually has model collarbones. Now, while this is cool and actually a nice detail, they are very pointy and also very deep. This is a bit much. I do really like the addition of it, but it could be executed better by just either painting it on or being a bit more leveled. This just makes it look like she has protruding bones or something. Looking at the sleeves, you can see that only the most upper part, or the inspiration of it, remains on her skin. She did have these weirdly layered pieces of fabric before that are very gravity defying, but instead of many of these with writing on them, she only has a little flower or a star button. The underside is much of the same, with having more of this pattern and actually being gold and pink instead of gold and black. That is kind of where the similarities end though, as the rest of the arm is unique. Her arm kind of looks like a flower itself, with the upper layer being kind of shaded and formed like petals. They aren't completely symmetrical on purpose, kind of swing this side and then the upper side being a bit more wonky on this side, and just generally being a bit different from each other like petals would be. I generally find that the blue to pink gradient with the gold lining is very pretty for the skin. The inside of the sleeve is more layered like this, kind of resembling the inside of a rose with this flared open pattern, or just resembling a flower bud. Moving down to her hand, as I've mentioned before, her nails were actually painted a bit more pink for the skin. Moving back to the front, we have more of the lotus pattern I've mentioned before. The entirety of the rest of her dress is longer than the standard one and is a lot more pink, but also has a lot more petal symbolism we will get into detail with. Like the neck, they kind of turned these two elements around, with instead of this being cut deeper, there is actually a little petal design in the middle with writing on it. I do think someone made a translation sheet before for the language in WutheringWaves, so you can kind of figure this out yourself if you want. I'll try to, and I'll put it on the screen if I did, but if I didn't, well, have fun. Around her entire top half, you do have this red strand, which you can actually find in Chinese hanfu or similar traditional Chinese dresses. The entirety of her dress is very layered, kind of like a flower, with a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't know if this is separate, 5, 6 layers. The first 4 layers are actually what makes up the main bodice of the dress. There's 2 under layers, then there's this white kind of inside dress layer, just kind of to make the inside a bit brighter, and then there's the main 4th layer, which kind of makes the bodice of the dress. The 4th layer has a very pretty pink to white gradient with a whole lot of embroidery at the bottom of it. Starting from here, you have a lot of smaller to bigger flowers, a lot of stripes that follow all the way down to this pattern. The bottommost pattern features all of these little petals and this very delicate flower embroidery. From what I can tell, this is unique all the way through until it mirrors. At the bottom, you have a lot more of these branches with buds and flowers on them. Besides these branches and flowers, you also have a wind pattern on it. I kind of want to start with the 6th layer on this one, as this is what connects to the main 4th layer. It connects using an actual button this time, which actually has like little lines to indicate that it's holding on. I'll hide the rest of her body to visualize it better. As you can see, the 6th layer is a lot more like the outermost petal, being a bit more curved and also revealing the pattern inside. Moving back down to the 5th layer, which is kind of what holds all of the accessories together, does have its own kind of wavy plaid pattern which has the same inside. It moves all the way from up here, which also has a really cute little pink gradient, but it also has holes for the stripes that are coming down from here. Looking at said stripes more closely, you can see that the most middle one is inspired by Chun-Li, which we will talk about again in a second. Chun-Li actually has a very similar kind of feather pattern on hers. This is connected to the lotus flower in the middle, which again is connected to the 5th layer, which is connected to the 4th layer, and so on. The strap is connected by a very pretty golden ornament, which has more of the branch or at least little pointy elements, which I wanted in the wreath on the head. From these 2 holes in the 5th layer, there's 2 of these strands moving down, which are a bit more unique than the one in the middle. Aside from a very pretty dark pink to white gradient, you have very unique symbols. I don't know what they're for or what they're supposed to be, or where they could have originated from. They again have some gibberish in the middle, though this time you cannot read it. Moving on from this to the back part, you do have her tacet mark, which is the same, but it just has 1 star weirdly covered up, and the lowest part of it still kind of disappears under the dress. Under it, you have more of these pink pieces of fabric, which all connect to this golden centerpiece. The pieces of fabric do make it kind of look like this golden part is woven into them, but upon closer inspection you can actually see it has designated holes for them. This middle piece goes all the way down through more of these golden branches to then end up in... Did you skin Chun-Li? Something that resembles Chun-Li's braid. While these aren't the exact braids she has, they do look very similar. Finally, moving further down, the legs are kind of barren, and this time it's okay with me. Just because the top half is very heavy and is obviously the focus, the legs shouldn't be drawing away from that, even if it means she loses her boots. Instead of that, we have the iconic no character can exist without a leg strap, though this time it is more of a golden wreath. One last look at the dress, the inside has more of the pattern, though honestly, this doesn't really do it justice. Moving down to the shoes, as I've mentioned before, these aren't actually the ones in the game. Before I explain, they start with this diamond-like ankle strap that is connected through a bead to the actual shoe. All of it is pearlescent, and these shoes are a really pretty pink color. Like her normal skin, these aren't normal stilettos, but rather have a heel that is a little bit thicker. Instead of the writing she has on her usual heels, there is more of a golden pattern I can't quite discern. Now for a comparison, they are a bit more see-through or glossy in-game, just to give off the vibe that you can actually see her feet through them, which, let me burst your bubble right there, they aren't modeled. But there's a lot of things that I've shown throughout this video that I cannot replicate in Blender. For example, I don't have her horns, which have been changed to pink, as well as Yue and all of her attack patterns. Just to show a quick comparison, as you can see, her horns were actually changed to pink. A lot of her attack combos do feature a pink Yue or just a pink dragon now, and a lot of the effects in her attacks were changed to petals. Her weapon, Aegis of Harvest, did also get a new projection, though the only thing that's been really changed about it is that the color was inverted and we just got a few flowers on it. And that, I think, was it for Jinhsi's dissection. I personally really liked that they incorporated a more traditional Chinese outfit into her skin, completely disregarding for once that most of the resonators have their tacit marks uncovered due to the risk of them burning through fabric. I love that the entirety of her outfit stuck to a certain flower theme, though it doesn't necessarily have to be the very same flower. I do wish that the skin gave us a bit more animations though, or maybe a special ultimate, but that is just my personal opinion. And I also think a skin like that would be priced a bit higher. Regardless, what do you think of the new Jinhsi skin? I don't know much about Chinese dresses, but I do think they're usually a bit longer, so if you have any knowledge of it, do you think the dress was transferred over appropriately, or is it still a little bit too short? I hope you enjoyed, and have a nice day. Bye bye.